I'ma bounce back like a ricochet. I'ma bounce back like a ricochet. I'ma bounce back like a ricochet. I'ma bounce back like a ricochet.
Welcome to the Moose Vu Sesh, man.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Thanks for helping us out in bringing hope in a different dose.
Yo.
You able to do that intro?
Yeah.
I'ma bounce back like a ricochet. I'ma bounce back like a ricochet. Bounce like a ricochet. I'ma bounce back like a ricochet.
Ow! That was hot, man.
That was hot. Hey.
Wow. So beatboxer, bro.
Yeah.
So how long you been beatboxing, man?
So it's sort of been 3 years seriously, but I started off just in year 6. Guy came to church, one of my friends, he was like showing me all the boots and cats and one of the old sort of Australian gym.
Joel Turner.
Joel Turner.
Joel Turner, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
These kids trapped in the struggling.
Yeah, I think it was like a one-hit wonder or something, but man, that was a good song.
Yeah.
He came to my school as well.
Did he?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
He's been around.
Yeah,
Hectic.
man.
Years
Yeah.
ago.
So 3 years seriously.
Yeah,
What do you
yeah,
mean
so I
3
was-
years seriously.
Yeah, I was doing it like from year 6.
Yeah.
And then I'm just doing boots and cats and learning a few different techniques here and there.
Yeah.
And then I got to year 11 and I was starting to learn more and more sounds.
Yeah.
And so I'd hear them online and then look up tutorials and try and watch heaps of YouTube stuff. I basically taught myself off YouTube videos. And so it's just fun. I enjoyed it. My family hated it because I'm like trying to learn sounds.
Yeah.
And
So you'd be that annoying.
yeah.
Like 1:30 in the morning.
Mick, shut up. Sorry, Dad.
No, it's not me. It's the cat outside.
Nah. So my parents like Mum said if I ever make any money from it, she's more than happy to spend it. So they're supportive.
Wow. Good parents.
No, they're really great with it. But yeah, in year 11, I just started learning more sounds and getting into it a bit more, and then thought, this could be a thing. I might be able to do this for my HSC for music. And everyone told me I was crazy. All my muso friends, because I'd always been in school bands and stuff. All my muso friends, my music teachers, my parents, they were like, "You've been playing," because I actually have been playing trombone for like at that point.
Give
for
us a
like
trombone.
8 years. Sorry.
Give us a trombone.
No, I can't do mouth trombone really well. That's probably better than me. But yeah, so they were like, "No, just stick to the trombone, And I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna do something different." People are telling me that I can't do it.
Yep.
And so there's sort of a bit of a thing in me where I was like, "Oh, all right then, I'll prove you wrong." And so I went and did it, and then for my HSC I did 2 performances and 2 Viva Voces, which are like a 10-minute discussion,
Yeah.
just with the markers. And so I ended up scoring higher in my beatboxing Viva and beatboxing performance than my trombone Viva and my trombone performance. And then
nice.
got onto the encore honor roll for my beatboxing Viva. And so that's like the best sort of music students of the state of that year.
wow.
So
Do you remember your routine of one of the songs?
yeah, so I actually got an idea off Toby Mac's song "I Just Need You."
Okay.
So just that melody.
So who is Toby Mac?
Toby Mac.
Yeah, I don't
Artist.
know Toby Mac.
Christian artist.
Oh man,
Man, I don't know.
he's basically the lead Christian artist in pop. He's been around since early '90s,
Yeah.
and he's still like relevant. He's still like keeping.
wow.
His music is still relevant to today.
Got songs
He's
like
got
"Feel It," "I Just
Yeah.
Need You."
I don't know.
Search it up.
classics, "Made
Later
to
on.
Love."
Jesus is still alright with
Yeah,
me.
old classics. Jesus is still.
I remember that
Oh,
song,
yeah.
man.
Yeah, that's the one.
Is that Toby
Toby
Mac?
Mac.
Man,
Mac is black with a tag. Something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I remember that song, and it was all over SBS and. Yeah,
that-
man.
yeah, that's
I
when it
wasn't
was-
even a Christian, man.
That's when
Yeah.
that's when it was unfiltered, and now, let's just not put religion on TV.
Yeah. Although Matthew West just recently got a song on the James Corden Late Night Live thing.
Hey, and even Kanye West last year.
Yeah, Kanye. And then James Corden is asking him, "Oh, so you like, what's all the go with the Christian stuff?" And he's like smiling and he's happy. He was never happy in interviews, and then he's talking about how he reads the Bible every day and he's praying and this kind of stuff. He's not perfect, but he's getting there. And
Yeah.
just awesome. See Christian music artists out there on mainstream stuff.
Wow.
Speaking of church, how do you maybe just throw this spanner out there?
Yeah.
What do you think of the term church kid?
Church kid.
Are you
Yeah.
a church kid?
Oh, absolutely. Through and through. CK. Nah.
What
I-
is a church kid?
Sorry.
What is a church kid? Eh?
So for me, I'm a second generation Christian. So
Okay.
my parents met in church,
Yeah.
and I was born, and every single Sunday of my life I've been to church. Wednesday night, always fully involved in church, and so I've grown up in church. My first church service. People say what they rocked up in their first church service. My dad wore his best flannel, desert boot jeans.
I was going to wear a flannel today. I should have.
You should have.
Should have.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm bringing back the 90s.
Yeah. But it'll be black and white anyway. Doesn't matter.
I always bring back the 90s. You know.
Yeah, classic. So I rocked up my church service. I was in a nappy,
Yeah.
and
Wow.
so always been in church, always been around that, and so the term church kid, it can sort of carry some ideas along with it.
Yeah.
So you know all the ins and outs of how to present yourself. As
Oh yeah. Church
good,
kids.
modest, law-abiding.
Yeah, Yeah.
clean-looking church kid.
ticked all the boxes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we all know that it's not about how many boxes you tick.
Yeah.
About doing the right things. It's about your heart, and so a lot of church kids, unfortunately, they miss that because they've grown up in the presence of God,
Yeah.
and so a lot of people that they live in the world and then they come and get saved. They have that massive light
Contrast.
and dark. Yeah, the massive contrast between a life without the presence of God and then a life with the presence of God.
Yeah.
But with church kids, it's not as simple, as that, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah.
And so church kids really need to. They've got such a blessing, man. Upon their lives, just from growing up in church and having that covering from their parents. But then there's also, a bit more of a thing on them that they really need to dig into God and really need to push for that relationship with God, because they might not feel that massive change,
Yeah.
But there's definitely a point, that I made a decision as well. And so I know some church kids, maybe not lots, but some church kids are sort of like, well, I've always grown up in church, and so I'm a Christian.
I'm
So-
going to heaven because my parents are going to
Yeah.
That's fine. I've
And
been good. I haven't
I'm
done
born
nothing
as a
bad.
Christian.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the reality is that's not true, is it?
Oh,
We
that's
all
right.
know that.
That's right.
You're a dirty, rotten sinner just like me.
That's right.
You know.
That's
You
it.
look the goods, you play the part.
That's
you
it.
know,
Chris-
Quack like a duck,
Church-
sound like a goose, but
Church kids are the best actors.
yeah.
The best actors. They'll raise their hands, they'll clap,
Yeah.
they'll sing, they'll say all the right words at church,
Yeah.
But if their heart's not in it, the rest of the week they'll just be doing whatever they want.
Yeah.
At school they'll be swearing along with the other kids, going along
Yeah.
to parties, whatever. I'm not saying all church kids,
Double
but I'm just
agent.
saying that is a commonality with a lot of church kids, that they feel like, they can be one person at church and
Yep.
another person during the rest
Living
of the week.
two lives.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
And were you living two lives?
Yeah, I definitely got to a point where I was hiding stuff in the background, and I'm as a muso, I like feeling the music, and so there's
Yeah.
some musicians that play, and they can play perfectly what's on the score, and they can play perfect notation with perfect technique and all that kind of stuff. But I like to focus more on the feel of the music.
Yeah.
So I'm a lot more sort of emotional with the music, and I like
Yeah.
the swell of it. So in church, I lead songs at church at the moment. And so I on Sunday nights, and so I try and build it up, and then hit the chord, and then it goes into the chorus, and boom, and you go loud, and then build and fade it off to soft. And so I like moving with the music, and feeling the music. And so with a common trait in my character is sort of doing
Go
things
with
or making
emotion.
decisions off my emotions, which in church and in a right way with God and in that relationship with God, that's great, because I feel like I can sort of connect to God on an emotional level. But when it comes to making decisions away from God and in private life, I've made some not so good decisions just based off my emotional sort of tendencies. And so,
How long had this been going on before you came to a spot where you say, man, I'm just as bad as the rotten sinner out there. And
yeah, so I think it's I don't
come to that realization in your life.
yeah. So when I was 12, that was when I first sort of made a decision,
Yeah.
And that's when I publicly, put my hand up, entered the altar call, and I was like, yeah, I need to get my heart right with God, and had a revelation that it doesn't matter if I'm a church kid. It doesn't matter, if I've been a drug dealer, if I've spent 19 birthdays in prison, it doesn't matter what your background is. You still need that
I don't know who
relationship
you're
with
talking
God.
about there, but
Oh, just someone.
That guy.
Yeah, that guy, man.
That interview in earlier.
Yeah, so when I was 12, I made that first decision and decided, you know what, this is what I'm doing. Mum and Dad have always said you can't piggyback your way to heaven, and so I've always been like, yeah, no, that's fair enough. I work at Hungry Jack's. That doesn't make me a burger,
Yeah,
just
that's
because
right.
I go to church, that doesn't make me a Christian.
Doesn't make you Hungry Jack either.
That's right. Doesn't
Or a
make me
Big Jack. Shout out Macca's.
It's a Mega Jack.
So yeah, there was, from 12, I sort of made that decision. But then, there's, as in everyone's Christian walk, there's ups and there's downs. And then towards the end of high school, the start of uni, sort of came to a, serious point where I was living, for a considerable amount of time, for a number of months, I was living this double life.
Yeah.
And my parents had no idea. As church kids, you know how to put on a face. You know exactly what people want to hear. You know sort of how to go about the
So when you
conversations.
say living a double life, what kind of things were you doing, man?
So yeah, for me it wasn't like drugs. It wasn't alcohol. I've never had a drug in my life, other than prescribed drugs.
Yeah.
I've never had a sip of alcohol, any of that kind of stuff. But
That's amazing.
my sort of thing, again, it comes back to the emotions, and so I like things that feel good and relationship type stuff. And so I got talking to a girl, and then it sort of just went downhill from there, and things just spiraled out of control. I ended up in situations that I never thought I'd be in, that I'd always said no, never, I'm never doing this, I'm never doing that, and I just it's always a slow fade. And so maybe over time I'd become complacent in my Christianity. I hadn't kept up the basics of reading my Bible and prayer every morning, even though I was still in church. And it's interesting, during that whole time that I backslid, I never missed a church service. I was always there. The only sort of one thing was that I wore like jeans and a t-shirt to church, which for me as a church kid was like, whoa. You're not wearing a suit and tie, because it's always a suit and tie. Because you want to take people seriously. That's what my dad's always said, is that he wears a suit and a tie because not for some religious thing, but because he wants to be taken seriously. And it's like, this is church. I want to be taken seriously. God's serious. I'm serious about God. And so for me, I wanted to follow in that. So I was wearing a suit and tie, all that kind of stuff. But then this a couple of services, I didn't wear a suit and tie, and people noticed that.
Yeah.
Like, bro, you all right? Is everything all right? And I'm just like, oh yeah, well, I'm just going through stuff or whatever.
Man, it's interesting how you say, just then when I asked you, and you said, man, when you were backsliding, it wasn't drugs, it wasn't other things, alcohol, or going out and running amok. And end of the day, sin is still sin.
That's it.
Even though you backslide, a lot of people, think, oh yeah, this backslide. I was going back to smoking, drinking, getting high.
Yeah,
but,
it's not so much as the drinking or the drugs or the alcohol, but it's the motive behind it.
Yeah.
So essentially, it's the same thing. You're not you're not as worse as a backslider. I mean, there's no levels to this backsliding business.
You're either you are or you aren't.
Yeah, you're in or you're out.
That's right.
And that's something that I'd always had, that perspective, is that I'm either in or I'm out.
Yeah.
And so I was definitely out at that point. I was still physically in church. I was still physically
sitting on the fence, kind of.
Yeah.
Now, to all those who are listening, okay, he's Mick's just just had a little different dress code, and there's probably some other people thinking he's just wearing something different.
Yeah, what's the matter?
Yeah, there's a motive behind it.
Yeah, it's the heart.
Yeah,
it's the heart, and God looks at the heart.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for me, my heart was out of it.
Yeah,
and so for me, that was a definitive thing where I was like, my heart's not in this. My heart's not for God. I'm making intentional decisions to be ignorant of conviction.
Yeah.
And so I was making those decisions. My heart wasn't in it. And it's like, man, I was just backslidden. I was a rotten sinner. And maybe it doesn't seem like anything too hectic, like you said, I wasn't doing drugs, I wasn't drinking, I wasn't running amok. I just had a relationship with a girl, but it wasn't righteous.
Okay. And the reason why you went for this relationship is because you were Man, I think I'm a psychiatrist. Um, you felt like nothing was going on in your life, or you were just in this monotonous cycle and you wanted something exciting?
Yeah, that's an interesting question.
As far as the world is concerned, anyway.
I think it might have just
Curiosity, maybe.
yeah, probably a little bit of curiosity. There's
How
probably a
old are
little
you?
bit
How
of
old
different
are you?
factors. So end of year 12, so I was 18.
Yeah.
So you are
18. I'd just gotten my P's, and so I was able. I was seven. I might have been 17, 18, something like that. So
And I think you know, a lot of it's because you're in church. You know, everything else outside of church is appealing, right?
yeah, I think there's definitely an element of that.
And, you know,
Yeah.
you're seeing, you know, people in relationships, and
Yeah,
you're seeing all this, and you know, it's appealing.
Yeah. What can't I have that?
Yeah.
yeah. Well, and the other thing as well is that in church we it gets pushed that absolutely, just get married young and go for God and do all this kind of stuff and just go push.
Yeah.
That is fantastic. I absolutely love that about our church, about our fellowship. But what I didn't listen to was the parts in the Bible where it says, don't start love before it's time. Just wait, be patient. Don't try and push stuff. Don't try and get ahead of God, because that's not going to work out.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, it didn't work out. It got to a point where my dad said, basically, if you continue living like this, don't think you're going to be living in this house, because we have standards. You know what they are.
Yeah. And you're 18.
You're 18. Pull your finger out or pull your head in, whatever you want to say, but you gotta get your act together.
Yeah.
And so I talked to my dad. I've got a great relationship with my parents.
That's great.
Now, but I talked to my dad later about that, and I was like, it was probably a couple of months after, and I was still pretty bitter at them and had a bad attitude towards them.
Yeah.
And and I said, I just think you could have dealt with it better.
Yeah.
Like threatening to kick me out straight away. It was just, you could have done that. And he was like, I didn't threaten to kick you out straight away. That's just how you heard it. And so I don't know what God was doing with that, but I think maybe God sort of made me hear things in a certain way that it was either, choose what you're doing outside of church and get kicked out, or come back to church, you can stay at home. And, in that sort of situation. And so I was like, man, I'm 18. I've only got a part-time job at Hungry Jack's. Can't do anything full-time, so I can't move out. My parents had always told us and sort of helped educate us on what living outside of home is like, with all the bills and things you have to pay. And so I was thinking, man, I can't pay bills. I'm not going to be able to do all this kind of stuff. So fine then, I'll do it your way, whatever. And so I went and, ended the relationship and, excuse me. And just like, fine, I'll do it your way.
But your dad was saying that it was motivated by love.
Oh, absolutely,
Absolutely by love. That just reminds me in Deuteronomy, God lays the law out.
Yeah.
Through Moses
Yep.
to Israel. If you do good, I'll bless you. You
Yep.
go into the land and all these things. But if you do bad, there's going to be curses upon
That's
you.
right.
Lay out. Here it is.
One of parenting.
Here it is, Julie.
Yeah. Yeah. So no, my parents absolutely they love me, and I felt so much shame later on for what I did and how I treated them during all of that.
So that was the pivot point when your dad.
That
spoke?
was that was probably one of the main pivot points.
Yeah, okay.
But another one was it was a weird mindset, because I was backslidden, but I also knew that I shouldn't be in ministry because I'm doing this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
And
okay.
so the answer was not to stop doing this stuff, but to step out of ministry. And so I went and talked to pastor. So this is backtracking a few months before that sort of happened with my parents.
Yeah.
But I went and talked to pastor, and man, I love my pastor. Shout out to Pastor Staples, absolute legend. He's so wise. He's so just on point with everything,
Yeah.
And so I sat down with him and basically told him what was going on. And I said, I need to step out of ministry because I know that it's not ministry standards, whatever. And then he just said to me, so you're choosing this over God? And just let it hang. And I was sitting there kind of like, just sort of blubbering and trying to make up some excuse, but knowing that there is no excuse, that's exactly what I was doing.
Wow.
And so it was like, that was one thing, and then...
So was that the wake-up call?
Yeah, I mean, it was convicting, but that whole time though, I've gotten used to ignoring conviction. You know, I'd gotten used to being like, yeah, I know this is wrong, but I should be right. I'll just forget about it. Don't worry, I'll work it out. I'm not going to die tomorrow. Should be right.
So why is that, man? Like, well, why did you come desensitized of all these convictions?
Well, like,
Did you was your relationship with God, you know?
yeah, well, it's like that parable where the man built his house on the sand and the man built his house on the rock. And the man who had the solid foundation, when the storms came, you know, when temptation came, he was solid. But on the sand, you know, the guy with poor foundations, his house got washed away. So that was like me. Temptation came and I had very poor foundations. You know, I hadn't spent the time in my relationship with God really digging into, you know, who God wanted me to be and God's will for my life, and hadn't spent that time building the foundations. And so when temptation came, I was just like, yeah, sure, and just got washed away. So, yeah, man, it's, you know, I really feel for a lot of church kids out there because it's you know, it's hard in some aspects. Yes, you know, obviously, you know, your background, man, I can't imagine the amount of battles that you've had to face. You know,
I don't think that I was in a war. I don't think there were battles at the time I was doing them. That's the thing.
but like coming from the world and into that relationship with God and that kind of thing. And but there's different battles that church kids have to face that I don't know. Maybe it doesn't get talked about as much. Maybe it's not as, you know, as I don't know, as brought up in church as much. I don't know. But there's just things that church kids face that they think they might be alone in it, or, you know, they're the only one going through their specific situations, or I don't know. But it's kids. Church kids have struggles, you know.
For sure, definitely. But you know, I always here's something encouraging for you church kids out there listening.
Come on.
All right. I myself personally always look back and say, man, I wish I was saved as a church kid 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't have to go through the dramas that I went through.
Yeah.
I wish I knew Jesus Christ day dot.
Yeah, so many people don't realize.
They take these things for granted.
100%. I shared my testimony with another guy last year at a Sydney conference, and he was like, he told me he was almost in tears, like just the power of being pure. So I think this is actually when I came back to church and sort of at church conference last year, I really sort of repented and was able to deal with a lot of attitude problems and things like that. But I gave my testimony to him about growing up as a church kid. Yeah. And he was like, man, that is powerful. You have no idea how powerful that is. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, there's been no big change. There's been nothing crazy in my life. Maybe I was addicted to milk once. I don't know. But I used to have like 6 Weet-Bix of a morning. Like, whoa. You know, but he was just saying, man, just the fact that you've never had a sip of alcohol. You know, you've never touched drugs. All of those things. It's powerful. And so
that is very powerful, man.
That's something I didn't treasure that. I didn't treasure my purity. Yeah. And man, that's like you were saying. I wish I could go back, and I wish I could just, you know, slap myself around a little bit, wake up yourself, you know, and realize how powerful a testimony of purity really is.
Yeah, that's right, man. Absolutely, man.
How has you been a Christian now, and you doing your beatboxing thing? How are you incorporating your talent into what evangelism, or you know, sharing your testimony somewhat? Yeah.
So at the moment, we've got a band at church. Yeah. We're called Chance Repeat.
Chance Repeat.
That's right.
Shout out to Chance Repeat.
Woo! Yeah. So
they'll be up and coming. Listen to them on Spotify.
No, we're not.
You pay me later, Mick.
Featuring the Black Moose.
Yeah. So yeah, it's myself. Shout out to Kit from the Newcastle Church and Jess as well, my sister. They both sing, and Jess plays the tambourine as well, and I play guitar and I beatbox. Yep. And so we had a guitarist. You know, I could play guitar and then they could sing, but we didn't really have a drummer. And so I was like, well, I can beatbox. And so I'll just give that a shot.
Why not, man?
And so that's what I'm doing. That's what we're doing at the moment.
I
And,
think, yeah, man, on Battle of the Burbs, I did that.
That
Yeah.
was absolutely sick.
That was
Thanks.
sick, man. One of my
Thanks,
favourite songs
Yeah.
as well.
was playing
Old
Church Choir?
Yeah,
Old
Church Choir, man.
exactly.
That was one of
great-
my favourite
That
songs.
was a great
man.
rendition.
Oh, thanks, man.
I usually listen to Zach Williams.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, man, I was like, man, that's one of my favourite songs. Yeah. Voting for them.
Oh, no, appreciate it. Yeah, so that's what we're doing at the moment. And then I'm also, I've tossed around a few ideas and had a chat to Pastor, and maybe there might be a specific outreach in the works for beatboxing and sharing my testimony.
Why not, man?
Similar to the strongman, how he does his strongman stuff and shares his testimony throughout. So maybe this coming year, I might have some kind of outreach idea with that. We'll see where we go.
Put
but-
on a beatboxing competition.
Oh, I'd love to, bro. I'd love
Put
to.
it on, man.
Where you win all the time.
Well, I've seen a few,
Challenge
a few
the
people
master.
come up. Well, there's a couple of guys in the Fairfield church that I've talked to about beatboxing and stuff, and then I
Yeah.
think there's one in the Hurstville church.
Wow.
So there's a few people around.
Battle of the Beatbox.
Battle of the box.
Ow!
So
Be lit.
yeah, we'll see. We'll see where God takes it.
I don't think at your age you should say lit.
Okay.
Too old for lit.
And, what do you mean?
Sorry, man. You're young at heart.
That's right. 4 years old in Christ.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
That's amazing. Well, man, thanks so much for coming down, bro.
More than happy to. No, it's been awesome. Thanks heaps for having me.
All the way from Newey.
Yui. I haven't even been up there, man.
It's awesome. You should come. Come sometime.
Yeah,
Get
should.
an impact team.
we'll do that.
Yeah,
That'd be awesome.
for sure. Man, any last thing you want to say to
Yeah.
all the church kids out there listening to this? Yeah, some encouraging words that you want to finish off with, man.
Yeah, just treasure your purity. Treasure that, guard that, because you might feel like you're the only one in your situation, or maybe church isn't fun anymore. I know lots of pastors' kids out there that they've got to sacrifice, and they've got to change a lot about their life. They've got to change schools. They've got to try and make friends all over the place. If their dad gets sent out, if their family gets sent out somewhere, then they've got to move and try and make friends again. And so that's hard. And church might not be fun anymore, and you're just in the grind of life. But treasure your purity. Man, I wish I could go back and change some decisions that I made, but treasure your purity and really build those foundations, And for me, it was like, people that lived in the world and then came into Christianity, there was a massive change. And it's like, man, how can I make that massive change? And I thought, well, if I'm already at step number 2, let's go to step number 3. If step number 1 is being in the world, step number 2 is getting saved and having that massive change. Step number 3, maybe that's the next change where you're already in church. You're already born in church. And so that can be another leap where you go all out for God and you're full on for God and you're just taking that next step, going to the next level,
What about parents? I mean, you've got great parents.
Absolutely.
What are some qualities that your parents had that facilitated your salvation and in your upbringing? I'm sure the motivated by love when he was ministering to you, just giving you this ultimatum or this decision to make.
Yeah.
But what are some other qualities you can share probably to help out other parents?
Yeah, look, in all my wisdom.
Yes.
Yeah,
From your point of view, from your experience.
Yeah, from a church kid experience. So one thing I absolutely I have the utmost respect for my parents and the battles that they've faced, the things that they've had to do that I've got no idea about, And there'll be things that I might never know. I might never know the sacrifices they make. You yourself, I know you're a parent. You've got three young kids, and it's like,
Girls.
man, there's
Girls,
things. There's things that you and your wife do that they'll never know.
Yeah.
And so I respect the decisions made in the background. My dad is stubborn. That's one of the things that I love about him, is that he's so stubborn. And so when we're going through hard times, we're still in church, and just that consistency.
Yeah.
Like with disciplining your kids, there's got to be consistency. And so like with spiritual education, there's got to be consistency. And so just consistently going to church, and loving your kids, even if it means to give them hard decisions to make and to be stern, to be strict with them. You know, my dad especially, you know, was just like, he was stubborn in his faith to the point that he was, you know, I wouldn't say that he was happy to, or that that he took any sort of delight in that whatsoever, but he was prepared to make the decision to remove his own son from his household if he continued to make those decisions out of love for the rest of his family, you know, obviously in his household. And so that was something that, you know, I kind of flipped out a bit at first and was like, oh, unbelievable, you can't do this, you know, that's just crazy, whatever, fine, I'll do it your way. And later on I talked to my mum as well about this. And I said, you know, I felt like that was pretty hectic and this is how I felt and blah, blah, blah. And she said, well, if we had to go back and do that all again, we would still, you know, make those hard decisions. We would still let you be angry at us, and, you know, for that short period of time, because at the end of the day, you still came back to God. And so just parents willing to make the hard decisions for their kids' salvation. Yeah. You know, and parents, you know, to all the church kids out there, your parents aren't perfect. Man, they're going to make mistakes. They're going to stuff up. And they're human. Man. And so you just you can't expect, even though your parents might have been saved for 20 years. You know, that's one thought that I had, was like, man, my parents have been saved so long. Like, how come they're not perfect yet? And it's like, oh my goodness,
nobody's perfect.
That's right. That's right. I slapped myself around the head again. But yeah, so parents aren't perfect, and just treasure your purity.
Treasure your purity.
100%.
Nice. That's it.
You know, I like that. Man, hey, you need to do that thing. We got to do that outro. This is the Moose Vu Sesh. Catch us on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, and all that stuff. Black Moose Vu, featuring Avocado Man, Woo! Mick Leggett. Signing out.
We're gonna leg it now.
Bounce back like a ricochet. I'ma bounce back like a ricochet. I'ma bounce back like a ricochet. I'ma bounce back like a ricochet. Ow! Boom!